Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Madeline?
Yeah, well, welcome everybody to this evening's Annapolis Conservancy Board meeting on November 10th. Looking forward to having everybody. I think we've got a full board here, which is pretty exciting. And we have Director LaPlace joining us tonight. So thank you very much for joining us. See you coming on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice to see you all.
Yeah, you too. And we'll just how about we'll just do our meeting minutes fairly quickly here, and then we'll do a round of introductions and jump in and share with you what we're up to and hear a little bit about what you guys have been doing. Does that work for you, Director LaPlace? Okay. All right. Did folks have a chance to look through the meeting minutes? Racine, thanks for sending those out. Okay. Any questions? Any edits?
Jonah, I wasn't present, so I'm going to abstain. But I did review the minutes. To be clear.
Thank you. We'll mark that down. Good note for you. All right.
I thought as usual they were fine. Myself.
Great.
Well, no, never mind. I shouldn't have any opinion. I'm afraid I missed that meeting, didn't I? Never mind.
You can always like them or not like them. That's
I
okay.
did like them, but I'm not the right person.
That's all right. All right. Well, then, see, can we have a motion to approve?
I will.
All right.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
I second Tom's motion.
Oh, great, Patrick. Sorry, Linda. I saw you coming off there, but
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Racine, do you have any questions on anything for the minutes?
We need to vote.
Oh, for sure. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, I'm
Why
good.
can I
I'm good.
never remember?
I say
that? I'm so
aye.
sorry. All right. All those in favor say aye, or you can raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Abstain.
Aye as well. Abstain. Good catch, Jack. All right. Okay. Well, with that, how about we introduce ourselves for Director LaPlace, and then we can jump into the conversation for this evening. So, hi, Michael. I'm Joanna Ogburn. I've served as the chair of the Annapolis Conservancy Board for, I don't know, a few years now. And let's see, my day job, I work on kind of building and facilitating these types of multi-stakeholder partnerships. So it's been fun to do that here in Annapolis as well as other places that I'm typically working. I'll pass it on over to Tom.
Joanna, before
Oh,
you
yeah.
pass it on, could you tell me a little overview of the board? You know, what its responsibilities are and its mission?
Absolutely, yeah. So the Annapolis Conservancy Board, I guess the way I'll describe it, and others please chime in here, is our mission has been kind of twofold. So one is to monitor and help manage existing easements that are held by the city of Annapolis, and also, I would say, it's sort of natural properties that are owned by the city of Annapolis that thus far they've intended to keep in that natural state. So I would say we monitor 14, 15 of these kinds of properties. Some of them have conservation easements on them, some of them don't, and they're just owned by the city. But the intent has been for them to remain in that natural state. So that's kind of the primary job. The second is then to try to be proactive and look for opportunities to conserve areas that have important environmental, recreational, scenic, historic value, to kind of build off of the network that we already have of protected lands for the benefit of the environment and also, kind of community as well.
So have you been interacting a lot with Eric Lashinsky on his work with the comprehensive plan?
Yes. So we started working with Eric. So our group is working with him to develop a greenway map. That's part of the comprehensive plan, if you've seen that.
Yes.
So we worked, really closely with Eric and Sean Wampler to survey all the boards and a number of community groups and staff to identify other key places that are important to kind of that environmental natural fabric, I guess. So best way to describe that of Annapolis. And then Sean Wampler and her group built the map from that, and Eric has since been really turning it into a good product for the comprehensive plan. And we've talked some with him about how to use that vehicle to advance either conserving places, but also looking at it in conjunction with future development. So yeah, Eric has been fantastic. I'd say we've had a really good back and forth with him.
Great.
Yeah, and we did work on a number of strategies as a group, I guess about a year or two ago, a year and a half maybe, that we sent over to potentially be included. And I think most of those have gotten incorporated thus far.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. The others want to chime in if I've missed something, or how about I'll say as we go around the introductions, if there's another piece of the Conservancy board that I didn't touch on that you think would be good to mention, please feel free to highlight that as well. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, Tom.
Yes, thank you,
Your
Joanne.
study. Yeah.
I am Tom Lippert. I'm probably the part of what the Conservancy Board is, and I'm sure you recognize pretty much with anything that goes around with the city, being as old as we are, we have a tendency to have a corporate memory. So right now I'm about as corporate as we've got within the board. I've been with us for a while, branching into a few administrations ago. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that because of that, it takes a long while for a lot of these things to develop. I think we all kind of wish we could snap our fingers and make it happen a lot more quickly. But so I have been there. I've recently retired my job, I guess, at the Department of Defense, working with the Navy. So now I'm trying very hard not to fail at retirement. So that's the current goal. So, that's what we do when I'm not here. So with
Great.
that, I'll pass that back. Any questions again, please feel free to chime in.
Thank you.
We have an overabundance of, we've got a lot of talent on this board with a lot of specialties. So, we're standing by ready to help.
Yeah. All right. How about Patrick? Got you next.
Hey, Michael, nice to meet you. I'm Patrick Browning, one of the newer members of the board, probably just under a year of membership. Day job, I'm a commercial real estate attorney practicing in Maryland, and was hoping to bring some of my skills as a commercial real estate attorney to the board to help both review and monitor the easements, as Joanna was saying, but also maybe hopefully expand the conservation effort to some other properties in the city of Annapolis. So great to meet you.
Thanks.
Hey, but Trudy?
Hi,
Tropical
Michael.
Islands.
Trudy McFall. I'm sort of a medium-aged person on this board, probably an old person in life, but I'm not sure how many years, but a few years on the board. And my background is affordable housing and developing affordable housing. So I think to the degree I was appointed to the board, there was sort of that connection of understanding how land and land development worked, and a lot of civic activity in Annapolis. And if Mayor Moyer was here, she would tell you that we are the oldest urban conservancy in the, was it America or the world or no? She's very proud of having established this during her tenure. That was very unique for an urban area to have this kind of conservation board. And it's a lot of fun, and I think we're the sort of hidden jewel of Annapolis in my view, because most people don't know how many easement areas we have and how important we are if the mayor wants to build pathways and bike trails, and how much the ability to tie all of our easement and planning activities together. And your question about whether we've been working with your department before and during the time you've been here, I think I'd say, Joanne, we've worked more with the planning department and better than during the time I've been on the board. It's come, not anything to do with me, but it's come together really rather well that we're coordinating with the planning department. And of course, Michael, you'll know me best right now as the person who doesn't think it's wonderful to have multifamily housing and single family.
I was just going to say, you're the woman.
That's me. That's me.
You're the yellow sweater woman.
That's right. I'm the person in the yellow sweater.
That's
Exactly.
right. You're the woman in the yellow sweater. I was there that
So
day.
it's a pleasure
Right,
to
press.
see you and meet you.
Nice to
That's
see
me.
you too.
That sounds like it was an exciting meeting. Sure.
Lively.
Yeah, I bet. Let's see, how about Karen? You want to go next?
Sure. My name is Karen Jennings. I live in Eastport. I've been on the board since 2008, and I'm a past chair By profession, I'm a senior engineer for Anne Arundel County's Bureau of Watershed Protection and Restoration. And I guess one maybe piece of information about the Conservancy Board, I hope I'm not repeating things because I did have to step away briefly when Joanna was giving the overview, but something I think is kind of interesting to know about the easements that we monitor is that most of them came to the city through the development process as a negotiation. So that was before, most of them came to us, the city, before the Forest Conservation Act for the city was applied or was passed. So there's a little bit of confusion, I think, that we're trying to figure out now about where things stand with that new law. But previously, all of the easements had come to the city through a negotiation during development. And so in conjunction with what Trudy said about Mayor Moyer being very proud that we were one of the first, she was also very proud, or is also very proud, that most of the easements were for free because they came through the development process. And so it wasn't like they were purchased. So that's just a little bit of tidbit. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Karen. That's a really important piece of the background. Let's see, how about Linda?
Good evening. Happy to have you here. My name is Linda Frost. I've been on the board, I think, for about 2 years now. And in my day job, I work on conservation easements and purchases of property for parks and open space for a national nonprofit. So it's been a pleasure being on the board, and I like to see us do a little bit more of proactive work, whether that's through just voluntary outreach to landowners or proactive in the sense with the city and seeing proposals come through and really having a good dialogue on those proposals where there's a desire to have some of that conserved. So thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then Jack.
That leaves me.
Yeah.
Good evening, Director LaPlace. Thanks for being here. Nice to meet you. My name is Jack Turner. I've lived in Annapolis my whole life. Currently, I am an environmental scientist focused on restoration of streams, wetlands, stormwater management for a company called GreenVest. I, like Patrick, am quite new to the board. I think it's been under a year that I've been involved. But it's important to me, with my background of understanding the environment and conservation to some degree, to try to implement those skills in my community. And since I've lived here so long, and Annapolis is very special to me, after a couple conversations with Karen Jennings a couple years ago, I submitted an application and was invited to join the board. So that was really nice. And so nice to meet you, and glad you could be here. And thanks for making the time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna guess you probably know Racine and Jackie.
I do very, very well.
Yeah. Oh,
Hi,
there you are.
we ride the shuttle together.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Shuttle
Oh,
mates.
yeah, and then so Director LaPlace, if you want, please feel free to kind of introduce yourself or share what you're working on. And
Okay, well, again, please call me Michael.
Michael, sorry.
And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. We've been real busy. Certainly the last, I guess, 9 months that I've been here, I've been so impressed with the work of my department and the work of folks in City Hall that give us support, from the mayor's office and the city manager's office. We work really closely, as you probably know, with Public Works Department. So I'm very impressed that it's sort of seamless between the departments. It's really one big team. So I was pleased to see that when I got here. We're really busy. The city council wants to have the comprehensive plan roll out
Well, that's great. And just thank you very much for being willing to join us today. Really, really appreciate it. We've been talking about trying to kind of re-engage for a couple of months now, or I guess probably longer than that. So it's really nice to have you here with us this evening. So I'll kind of kick it off, and then everybody please jump in here. I know one of the things we were hoping to speak with you a little bit about is how best our board could or should interact with sort of the development review process. So as Karen mentioned, historically, most of the easements that we monitored came to us through the development process. And I think, and Karen will have to jump in here, or Tom, with your longer term knowledge of this, but earlier on, there was a pretty strong, I think, relationship between our board and some of the development reviewers. To the point where when they had properties sort of coming up where it might be appropriate to put an easement on it, or there was a way to look at it in conjunction with adjacent properties that might have natural areas, ways you could kind of configure it to create the most green space possible or connections. Those conversations were happening, I think, fairly regularly. And then I think through changes in administration and staff over the years, that sort of went away. And so I think there's an interest from some on this board in kind of reigniting that relationship and just figuring out how we might be able to be a part of that conversation and maybe help advise and bring some of that more kind of regional perspective, I guess, to the process.
Yeah, I think that would be great to formalize, maybe you having more of a set advisory role in when we're looking at large projects. And I know that staff, particularly Tom Smith, the chief of current planning, is very aggressive in looking at opportunities for, environmentally sensitive areas to be preserved. And we really need to have those areas recorded so we know down the road, we can make sure they're being maintained in the state that was agreed upon. So maybe there's some way to formalize when a big project comes in, we can loop you into the review process so you can have review and commentary. I could speak to Tom about that. Joanna, you might want to reach out to Tom Smith as well and to just say that we spoke about it tonight. I think it's a great idea.
Great. Take it down a note. Yeah. And Karen, Linda, Jack, others, do you want to sort of chime in here and provide any more sort of background than what I was able to share?
I mean, I know when I first joined the board in like 2008, met that, like 2008 to 2010 timeframe, we often, when there was either a development or a redevelopment proposed, and there was natural resources on the site that planning and zoning wanted to protect, they would bring a plan set to our meeting. Sometimes it was Tom. I don't remember who else from planning and zoning might have come, but they would say, this is what we're thinking of asking them to put an easement on this area. Do you guys agree? And sometimes we would agree, or sometimes we might say, well, what about over here? This looks like this is, steep slopes, or, this is closer to the stream, and then we would talk about it. But that was sort of how it was happening at the beginning. And then at some point, there was an administration change, and it was decided that our board should only give comments to the planning commission. And so then that was sort of where we got stuck for a while. But it seems like it's a little bit more proactive and congenial to be earlier in the process and have a more back and forth discussion rather than submitting comments when it's up at the planning commission, which can be a little bit more contentious.
Yeah, and also that's when obviously the plan is more fully formed. It's sort of late in the game, to say the least. So I'm fine with this board interacting with planning staff at an early stage so we can get your ideas and comments, at the beginning of the process. That's fine. I mean, if we want to kind of go back to that model, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I think that would be exceptionally helpful, Michael, because one of the things that we don't want to drive the train. We just want to, kind of be an additional set of eyes looking out. Each of us are kind of tucked in within our own wards. A lot of us are, working with different homeowners associations, totally beneath the level we're here, but we can bring it to the visibility here. But unless we've gotten in with your folks earlier on, again, just to say, hey, here's something that was mentioned. It's better than just learning it too late because our communications were a little abysmal. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to it because we might miss something that you all notice or think about. But also, if we're trying to pitch a certain area of a project to be preserved or conserved, set aside, it helps to have some backup, that it's not just staff asking for it, that the Conservancy board is in agreement. That would help us.
Exactly. We want to, kind of collectively come forward as one voice for the city of Annapolis and, not, divide and conquer, which is way too easy with a whole group of good, well-meaning people, but sometimes we'll end up tripping over each other if we don't know where the other one is coming from. You're right.
Great.
Thank you.
And anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but this board is a little bit different than, say, like the planning commission or the environmental commission, because we're simply advisory, right? There's no real authority on this board. It's all perceived power, like the monarchy.
That's correct, but the environmental commission is also just
They're also
advisory.
advisory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the planning commission is more has more legal
Mhm.
authority that I think than we do. Like we don't have any legal authority.
So there's a distinction there between the planning commission and this body, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that sometimes, I mean, you're bringing up an excellent point, but that sometimes just confuses the living daylights out of everybody else. They realize they can talk to one group and not have to talk to another group, but the other group is then going to a little further down the line raise an issue that'll grind the thing to a halt and it goes back and forth. I'm in the middle of the not the actions going on, but the recipients of Providence Point, which is kind of right across the street from where we are. So, we get the on again, off again that's been going on for almost a decade now. But, and a lot of it is, gee, if we had known that from the beginning, or if we had been aware of, what the city was looking at from the beginning, it might have been a little bit easier in order to navigate, because nobody really wants to antagonize anybody else. We're just trying to, streamline as much as possible, get the information as much as possible, put the authority to decide into the hands of the people that are, given that responsibility, and just, ensure that they are making a well thought out determination. And then, we stand by and all support the city, because we all kind of work at the behest of the city.
Well put.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. And I have a couple other things I know I'd love to sort of chat with you about too, Michael, if that's okay. And please, everybody else jump in here as well. So one is, and I think probably just growing that relationship with Tom and the department a little bit more will help with this, is the best way to make sure that development review folks are aware of the existing easements, kind of where those are located and on which portions of the property. We've got, just a couple of complications over the years where things were approved where they shouldn't have been. And we just kind of had to So we had to backtrack there. So just the best way we can help to, and I don't know what that would be, if it's sort of a layer that would come from sort of Sean Walkler's shop with GIS or
Yeah,
with the,
I
don't know.
I was under the impression that that's being updated as a data layer in GIS as part of the comprehensive plan. Is it? I mean, that's my understanding. But I can check with Eric on
Could
that.
be, yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of what's being proposed in the comprehensive plan is extending waterfront access and connecting green areas through greenways and pathways. And, you know, obviously that's going to have to take advantage of existing easements and, you know, lands in public way. So I'll check with them because the way I understand it, that GIS layer is already being developed. That should be a good tool.
That'd be great. Yeah. And then I was kind of interested when you mentioned before about Tom Smith. He's really interested in looking at areas that are in need of environmental kind of preservation, environmentally sensitive areas. And also, I think you said kind of ways to track those or record them to make sure they do stay long term. And that's something our board has talked about as well. You know, one, there's kind of the major easements or areas that we have been monitoring and we think makes sense for our board to continue monitoring. And then there's some of these areas that are really small that maybe don't kind of warrant full monitoring on a yearly basis that some of these bigger places do. But how could we kind of track them to make sure it's recorded somewhere in the city or just, yeah, kind of a database or way to do that. So I'm kind of curious if you guys have been talking about that and definitely our board members jump in here.
I don't know if I mean, there might have been conversations before I came on board. I know Tom's very concerned about this, as is Eric. So again, I think it's that GIS layer, that database of, you know, a comprehensive database of all the easements and public ways throughout the city. And I think there's a lot probably that still needs to be added to that database, but I'll check with them.
Joanne, do you think it might be helpful, or Michael, you may very well be aware of that anyway, but there are some connections that as a volunteer group for the city, we don't have an official moniker of being able to initiate a lot of stuff on our own, but because of connections with the interests of all of us, for example, the South River Land Trust, there are some things that normally we would like to have done for the city, or we're aware, or we have heard some people within the city that said, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could, that the South River Land Trust, for example, might very well be able to provide, some assistance as we move through. So it's almost like, trying to tap an ally on the shoulder and using a little military terminology, but just, inviting them to take a look, and they can then become a potential assist or potential, benefit to the direction that we would all like to be going in. It may
Tommy, do you mean the Scenic Rivers Land Trust?
Scenic River, I'm sorry, yes.
Thought so.
Like I said, that's not, yes, absolutely. But I mean, having other people, and that's the one, again, most recently, that are working within various portions of the city. But it's, there's a lot of people trying to do the right thing. And all we want to do is have them do it once and have them do it right, and then make everybody aware of it. And I think that might, alleviate just a ton and a half of problems that we currently run into, simply because of the structure that we have been built within.
Right.
So.
Well, we're very open to partnerships and sharing of information. We want there to be one true, comprehensive, and clear set of information that's available to everyone. I mean, for instance, we work very closely with the county planning department on a regular basis. But if there's other nonprofits and partners that could help us, we're certainly open to that.
Yeah, and I think that might be, that might bring, somebody else to, to the table from, that has some resources. Okay, enough for me for now. Thank you.
Joanne,
I'll keep quiet. I'll go back in my corner.
Oh, you're great.
you look good in
Yes.
the library instead of your car, Tom.
Thank
Tom,
you.
Tom, I was going to ask you, have you read all those books behind you?
I know.
Oh my God.
That's part of my mission for the retirement, I think.
There you go.
Wow, that's ambitious.
I don't know where this
Good call.
comment fits in, if it fits in here or anywhere, but my fellow board members have heard it a few times. So I'm sort of mystified as a 41-year resident of Annapolis, how many areas of Annapolis that I've seen either from where I live in Wardour, West Annapolis, or developing in the city, or just how many parcels of land that are known to belong to the city that are sort of lay fallow, and how many must belong to the city because they don't seem to belong to anybody else that lay fallow. And how do we get, and they ought to be under us, they ought to be under an easement inspection and control. We ought to get a uniform place where our undeveloped land and make some decisions. Is this for eternal preservation? What is this land? I live, for example, as they've heard, on a ravine that goes down to what was supposed to be a real road that's a paper road that's now a stream, and we don't, all the landowners go within 40 feet of it, and there's a strip that 40 feet wide that it must belong to the city. It doesn't belong to any of us. It doesn't belong to Wardour. It doesn't belong to West Annapolis. How do we get those into useful protection or cleanup or use or something? I bet there's quite a bit of acreage, and we know the Truxton Park where, why shouldn't we think about a more unified system of all control over all the vacant preserved land under our conservation board or under somewhere? So that, I don't know, maybe the comprehensive plan is picking these up, but it just strikes me that we're not this big of a city, and yet I think there's a fair number of parcels that just kind of lay there. Nobody's in charge of them or in control of them or pays any attention to them. And so anyway, that's my usual spiel for, and there you are, the planning director to make it too. So.
Well, no, it's a very good point, and it is part of the comprehensive plan effort, because we have to look at land that's underutilized or hasn't been spoken for or doesn't have any purpose right now, and to decide what the highest and best use is. And what the highest and best use can very much be open space, permanent open space, or is the location such that it makes sense to be connected up with existing open space elsewhere. Now, it does beg the question down the road, which isn't really for the comprehensive plan, of does the city have the resources to maintain it? Should it be a partnership, maybe with a neighborhood association or a nonprofit? But all those answers can flow from the decision of what's the highest and best use of all these parcels. Some of them may be city-owned, some of them may be just privately owned, but in probate, the families not agreeing to what to do with them. Some could be county land, some could be state land. We are the state capital, so you'd be surprised where that pops up. And some institutionally owned land. So it's not an easy answer, but we are looking at that. That's an important part of the analysis for the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I've seen that done before, Trudy, where sometimes you call it a vacant parcel analysis.
Yeah, or underutilized inventory of land use. Yeah, I've done those before, and it's not hard to do. I mean, you can track it with tax, department data, the tax maps, and cross-reference it other ways. So we're looking at that to figure out what's out there.
See, I have a theory in my neighborhood. If we figured out who owned it, what they wanted to do with it, that you could probably put together some property owners. I know if there was some way to make that ravine reach the Weems Creek waterfront for the neighborhood, you could talk me into an easement. I have too much property land as it is, So, I mean, I just think it's an opportunity base that we haven't mined yet. And I think our group that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put to be preserved under clear and consistent management and inspection. So we're here.
Well, a big part of Eric's focus has been, him and the consultants working on the comprehensive plan have been, waterfront access to existing open space, and making connections between existing resources. So I think you'll be pleased with what you see in the draft report, but please add to it. If there's things we've missed or we haven't thought about, will be the time to speak up about that.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Great ideas.
Yeah, and I'll share with you one kind of exciting piece of news. And Jackie, you really worked very hard on this, that I think enables us to maybe, when we're ready, take some next steps in terms of looking at voluntary easements and then potentially kind of getting to the point where we're able to create them. And this is something I remember talking to Eric about a number of months ago, and he was excited to hear it as well. So traditionally, to create an easement, especially on a piece of property, as you probably know, you have to do a boundary survey and kind of figure all that side out, which costs money. And we didn't really have an extra set of a pot of money to do that in the city, but Jackie worked very hard with the Critical Area Commission, I think, and has worked out to be able to use fee in lieu monies for boundary surveys as well as for kind of other uses. So we're now kind of at a really good point with this board where I think we've started to identify some areas that might be great potential easements and actually have some funds we could dip into to take that first step to do a boundary survey and be able to create those easements. And we've worked on and off of the past couple of years with the Maryland Environmental Trust to kind of start a relationship with them. If there is a property that's owned by the city, take, for example, the one kind of close to Hawkins Cove that we've been monitoring for a long time, where there's an interest in seeing that preserved into perpetuity, we can do that now. We have the funds to do the boundary survey, and the Maryland Environmental Trust is open to conversations about holding easements like that. So just kind of wanted to share that tidbit with you. We're really excited to be in that position at that point.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie, again for making that happen on the funding side.
Joanna, this is kind of what I think, in the base of this discussion, this is what I consider a minor thing, but, I know we had talked previously about the easement mapping that we have and, potential, not only potential inaccuracies, but potential like omissions where we don't have a map for easements that we're technically supposed to be monitoring or at least be aware of. And again, I don't know if that's something that planning, we can work with planning on, or if that's like a GIS, or some other sort of exercise, but, being able to work with technology to try to get some of these easement maps updated. I hadn't heard that come up yet. And I know that that's come up before.
Well, we're involved in that. We work very closely with Sean Wempler and GIS on all the mapping that the city does right now. And so, like I said before, the departments don't stay in their silos. It's really a lot of overlap with Public Works and our information systems office, IT and planning. So if you're talking to Eric, he's talking to Sean, who's talking to DPW, it's a back and forth thing on a daily basis.
Great.
Yeah, I think one thing that Jack is kind of alluding to here that we've run into a number of times is, so we have some rather old maps that were created to show us sort of where the easement boundaries are on a number of the properties that we monitor. And over the years, we've gone back in some cases and looked at the deeds and looked at the plats and really try to figure out, is this exactly where the easement is located? And it isn't. So some of those maps that we've been working off of that are quite old at this point, the boundaries aren't quite right, which is a little troublesome. If something does kind of come up in an easement, we need to know if it is or isn't in there. And so we've been trying to think through ways to update those maps. And we're doing the best we can to sort of make sure we're looking at the deeds and the plats when we go on the property. But we're kind of curious if that is an area where the planning department might have some staff assistance to help sort of look at those plats and really help us figure out where those boundaries are exactly.
Yeah, I think like we have a new comprehensive planner working with Eric, and he's helping with the comprehensive plan itself, but he's doing special projects, and that certainly, he could coordinate with Sean and GIS, maybe take a look at the old mapping and the accuracy of it and getting everything digitized and modernized. That's really important. So it'd be easier for you to use.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I think
also, DPW may be helping with surveying. They could help us if something surveying needs to be redone or something like that.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that. I think, some of us have experience looking at plats and sort of comfort in that area. Some of us don't. And some of us, I'll say for myself, don't do that on a daily basis. So I feel like it's a bit dangerous, but it would be wonderful to have kind of a planner with that level of expertise, sort of really be able to tease out which areas are meant to be truly a conservation easement. So some of these old ones that came through the development process, as Karen mentioned, it's a little tricky to figure out what really is a true conservation easement area or something.
And we
else.
might have more information on file that
Yeah.
that never got to you, after
Yeah,
a project was approved. It might be in the development review files here, so we could always double check on that. I mean, all these things
That's
have to
huge.
be recorded. They have to be recorded, so
Yeah.
the information should be somewhere. Hopefully it's accurate. We can check on that.
yeah. No, thank you. So that would be really, really helpful. So we really appreciate the openness to look at that. And let me
And
see.
just to
Yeah.
tag on to what Joanna was saying, like some of the easements in the old, like the very first ones that they did, they were kind of loose with the term conservation, and so some of them are really landscaping buffers rather than true conservation easements. So we've run into that a lot. I don't think that happens anymore, like in the new easements, but when we look at older easements, we come across that quite often.
Yeah, and that's where it gets a little tricky, I know, for some of us, especially if you're out there and some things on an old plat say open space, some things say conservation, some things say something else. And it's sort of hard for us to feel 100% confident, right? That
Right.
yes,
Certainly it's more specific now than it was then.
yeah,
People are very specific about these things,
yeah,
as they should be.
yeah, no, absolutely. So let me see. So from board members, do you all have other kind of questions for Director LaPlace, other things we've talked about over the past months that are coming up for you?
I have all sorts of things I'd like to ask Michael, but they don't have to do with our business tonight.
Is it related?
He's got a lot of controversial projects on his plate when you arrived, didn't
Let's
you?
keep those out of this meeting.
Busy little town you got here.
Yes,
It
indeed.
sure is. It sure is, yeah.
I don't know how anything actually gets built here, but I'm anxious to see that.
Well, sometimes developers say the same thing.
Mhm.
Oh, well, I'm sure we're well off for having you. Fresh
Oh, that's very kind.
ideas and
Thank you.
energy and lots of experience. So
It's really my department. I've been just thrilled. The people that I'm working with directly and day in and day out. I think the city's lucky to have tremendous talent in the planning department and the other departments too. But I'm speaking about the one I supervise directly. It's a delight to work with them.
That's great. Yeah, I can say really enjoy working with Eric Kaczynski. I know Linda's known him from past work, and other folks have worked with him as well. And it's been really great, and really just appreciate being able to have that kind of back and
Well,
forth.
it's good to hear. It doesn't surprise me at all. He's been working so hard because he knows how important this comprehensive plan is to the city coming up. So I know you won't be disappointed, and his hard work will really show.
No, we're looking forward to seeing that. And let's see. Oh, I do have, right, I'll just throw this one point out. I know enough to be a little bit dangerous here about the Forest Conservation Act. So folks, at one point, we had a conversation over whether Forest Conservation Act areas should be monitored should we consider monitoring them? Or do we just need to make sure they're being tracked in some way and recorded, sort of in this sort of common database type idea? Wanted to see if I'm remembering this conversation correctly, and if there are any kind of questions here for Michael, someone who is probably going to know a lot more about that than I do.
Well, just speaking for myself, I know I'm pretty confused about, because before the city passed their forest conservation law, that the conservation areas that were set aside during the development process they were put into they were usually, the property was still owned by some HOA that was formed as part for that development, and then the easement was given to the city. So I'm not sure what the process is at all with the forest conservation law, because that's more of a requirement that they preserve certain areas. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm guessing that we all kind of feel that way, that we're like a little bit confused about what our role might be now with these kinds of areas, or if we have a role.
So Karen, this is Jackie, they're still conservation easements that the city holds. So they're no different from anything else you have there. But we can have, next time Ashley attends a meeting, I can have her speak to them directly, and if there really is any difference. I'm trying to remember, it's just so many different projects ago, why we had the Scenic River Land Trust step in on Providence Point to hold that easement. And it's just not
I can answer that question.
Okay, go ahead.
It was because the city had developed well, and the Conservancy Board assisted, but they were using a easement template that had been approved by the law office, and the easement template allowed for roads and infrastructure to be built through easements. And the owners of the property who are having the Providence Point and Crystal Springs development built didn't want that to be allowed, and so that was why they chose to go with a different organization to hold the easement. That's my understanding.
I thought there was another reason.
Maybe there's something else too.
Oh.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, okay. No, we'll have Ashley explain that one to us.
So your understanding, Jackie, is that Forest Conservation Act, those areas are actual easements that are recorded with the deed, like they're added.
They become conservation easements. And that was part of the deal on Providence Point, for example, is that the forest would, because we applied the Forest Conservation Act to it, that property had to go into an easement. The protected piece of it.
Okay, the de facto might be that it should be conveyed to the city, but in certain instances, it could go to a qualified other nonprofit holder,
Right.
or other state entity or something.
Right. And I believe I was involved in that decision and suggested Scenic Rivers Land Trust, but it was quite a while ago. I mean, it's probably going back to 2018. I'm trying to remember exactly why.
That's all right.
But since I didn't draft it, maybe Ashley can jog my memory on that.
But would it, I mean, on its face, it seems to make sense that if we're sort of set up to monitor easements held by the city or other property interests held by the city, that we would monitor the Forest Conservation Act easements that are dedicated to the city.
Well, no, because in that case, with Scenic River Land Trust holding it, they are
Well,
responsible.
no, I know.
Not in
I
that
meant
case,
theoretically the ones that do go to the city, not
Yes,
that.
yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
How often does that happen?
Well,
Sorry.
how many times? I don't know. I haven't been on board with any of them have occurred like that, because again, the
Okay.
city, the one that Cars Beach is our most recent conservation easement, I guess, but that's being held by the state.
Mhm.
The city is the property owner in that case, and the state is the grantee. And Linda, maybe you can tell us, like I was talking, I never had a chance to check with DNR today, but the state/DNR is the grantee, but that easement is set up for multiple grantees. So I'm assuming the DNR will designate it to a like Maryland Environmental Trust or something like that? Or will DNR administer it?
No, no, DNR does hold conservation easements itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Particularly when there are purchases. That's kind of, that's MET sort of that quasi state entity set up for the donor or some purchases. But.
Okay.
Well, just some recent ones that I remember our board being involved in was, well, there was the one, there's like a retirement community, what's it, something?
I don't know.
Oh,
One by CVS.
yeah.
By
yep.
CVS. I can't remember
Tires,
all
the
the name
place
of it.
with the tire dump.
Used to have a tire dump.
What's that?
Oh, it's Bay
Bay
what'd you
Village.
say?
Yeah.
Bay
Bay
Village.
Village, yeah.
Yes.
So we have an
Yep.
easement there. That was
Mhm.
recorded. I know that was finalized. There was a proposed easement. I don't know if this development ever went in because I haven't been that way, but off of Old Solomon Island Road, there was a townhouse
Hmm.
development. And the back of that development was a steep forested ravine that was supposed to go into conservation easement. It's like just inside the city limits. And
Yeah,
then,
I live there. It's Williamsburg Homes. Yep.
Oh, there you go.
okay.
Yes.
So, so I don't know if that got recorded. That was going to be an easement. And then actually I've been meaning to bring up, I keep forgetting about it. I was going to ask about, because I think that development off Forest Drive that you can see when you're leaving the city, like off, when it turns from Forest Drive to Aris T. Allen. I think that's
Yeah.
called Rocky Gorge. Is that
Yeah,
Rocky Gorge?
I think
And,
They
so.
call it Athens now.
Okay, well,
Athens?
that
Yeah.
one was supposed to have a forest conservation easement along the forest edge by the waterway. And when I drive by there, it looks like there's not one, but the caveat is that tornado went through there. So I'm not sure if it's just that the
Yeah. Right,
tornado took
that's-
out all of our easement trees.
It's
Michael
all
can
been,
speak
it's
to
all
that.
been, yeah, it's all been inspected by staff and
Okay.
by our forester and DPW is involved. So we're on top of that one.
Good.
Okay. So
Yeah, I
those
think
three are the
Michael-
ones
One
I'm
of your
interested
many hot projects, huh?
I think, Michael, didn't we determine that the tornado really didn't damage areas of the forest conservation easement? Or
Yeah,
didn't
they-
aff- it
that's
didn't
right,
affect
Jackie.
it didn't affect the calculation at least?
Exactly. The conservation area is largely intact. There isn't a net loss. But the tornado did damage elsewhere on the site that people were concerned about.
If we're near slowing down and letting you go, I wonder if you could just go back to the comprehensive plan and just tell us briefly what happens. It comes out, hopefully you say in the spring or soon, and then what happens in terms of review and how would our board, because I'm sure we'll look at it very seriously, how will all that work? How does feedback come in from the public, from boards, from...
Yeah, it's been about 20 years since I've done a master plan or a comprehensive plan in Maryland, so I'm not as very clear with all the different steps, but why don't I ask Eric to maybe,
Okay.
I don't know, how often do you meet? How often does this board have your meetings?
We meet every other month.
So maybe Eric could give you a presentation or, kind of a rollout or talk about the process. He's the expert on it, so that'd probably be good to get it from the source.
Typically, you're going to put that up on your website, though, at some point, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Feedback.
know,
Keep in
even the
mind,
process
we're just putting up a preliminary draft. It's the beginning of the process, not the middle or the end. So you'll start crafting the sculpture. We're putting the big, hunk of clay up there, so.
Well, I think it'll be an interesting issue. The public is one thing, and of course we want the public to have their say, but you got quite a few boards just in the city structure who
It's a lot.
think they're going to own a piece of those issues. And it's just going to be sort of interesting task you're going to have of how to, because if this comp plan lives up to everybody's hopes, it's going to be better and it's than what the generalities of the past, and it's going to be real. And we will, have some thoughts about locations and sites and things. And so I'd just be interesting how we're going to work with you to.
Yeah, we're going to engage all the advisory boards directly, and we really want specific input. We don't want generalities. I mean, we want this to be something that can be really clearly enacted.
Well, I think you got them from us on which places would make good complete trail systems and other things. So we'll keep
we don't
trying
wanna
to
miss
be
any-
helpful.
That's great. We don't want to miss any good opportunities like that.
Going to add something about the comp plan. The Resilience Authority I'll be submitting it to the Resilience Authority once it's approved by City Council. But just keep that in mind, the Resilience Authority in your back pocket. Although they are mostly looking at how to fund and finance infrastructure projects, part of resilience building is also protecting those natural buffers and other areas that can provide resilience to the city, especially the shoreline resilience piece of it. So to the extent that this board is interested in targeting some properties and there's an acquisition piece to it, the Resilience Authority can play a role there.
That's a good point, Jackie. Yeah, I hadn't really been thinking about it for that purpose. So that's, I think, a really good thing for us to keep in mind. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Yeah. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, and Michael, you're certainly welcome to continue and stay with us for the rest of our meeting if you would like to, but also understand if you want to get on with the rest of your evening. But yeah, before we do that, do you have any questions for us or kind of comments, suggestions for the board?
I don't think I have right now. I think I have a pretty good idea of your mission and your goals and your concerns and issues. I'll take that back to my team and let's just continue the dialogue. And I appreciate this invitation. I really do. It's been really interesting conversation.
No, thank you. We really appreciate your time as well and your willingness to kind of jump out and spend your Thursday evening with us. So thank you very much. And yeah, look forward to speaking with you in the future. Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Nice meeting everyone.
You too.
Thanks, Michael.
All right.
That was a good thing to do, Joanne. Whoever thought of getting that arranged?
You know, we came up with that last meeting. I know it's something we've talked about, and he was a new guy coming in. Racine said she could make the connection for us, and I know Linda worked with Racine offline to make it happen. So I think it was a really good suggestion, and it seems like we've got, I don't know, got some runway here to work with. So couple of things I had coming out of that is he said he would speak with Tom Smith about finding a more formal advisory role, I guess, for us, or I guess, something could really write down, and it wouldn't hurt for us to reach out to Tom Smith as well. Do you all like that idea to reach out to? Okay, so we can.
Time we quit, we got this thing converted to writing our relationships, I think,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's some really good things there, and certainly who was that? Jack. Thank you. That was in the back of my head, the mapping of easements. I think it was an excellent placement there of that question. So we yeah, I think following up on that as well with our new planner, that would be really great if they could help us with that. So I think good move there. Yeah, any other kind of takeaways or things you guys got from that? Next steps, we'll make sure we jump on.
I think
Joanne, this is easy for me to say, to think up tasks for you or the next you, but I think after something like this, in addition to sort of what you're just starting to do, I think it'd be good to write him a thank you and here's what we think we agreed to, because we have these discussions and they float in and out of our world and around. I mean, maybe just say, and can understand what we think we talked about and agreed to. We agreed to a few things there, I think, or a few hopes of what we would like to see. Just a suggestion.
Hopes and dreams.
This kind of thing he could distribute to his staff, and we might put a little deeper imprint into the bureaucracy. But it's not easy for me to figure out tasks for you or somebody else to do.
Well, and you're always welcome to take them on as well.
Well, I have a few undone tasks already. Thank you.
What's up there, Linda? I saw you.
It was like you obviously took the computer with you on vacation. So
that's right. Yeah.
I thought those,
Yes, not good.
Yeah, it's always dangerous. Yeah, I do think that's a very nice idea. Thank you. Reiteration of sort of the points made.
And if you wanted, send it around us and let us, edit or add or whatever. If maybe that might be easier than trying to pick our brains tonight and but whatever, however you want to do it. But we don't often get the planning director to come and spend an hour with us and talk over things. It seems worth.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Documenting a little bit, maybe.
Absolutely, I think it was really nice of them to spend that time. It was. Yeah, well worth it. No, thanks again, Racine, for making that connection.
Yep.
All right.
I didn't mean to stop you from picking our brains, but when our brains are picked, I think we should try to put them down. Just a, short memo, just a thank you, here's some.
Yeah. Racine, did you have something there? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying,
Auto-generated.
okay.
Heard you loud and clear. That's great. All right. Well, let's move on to next on track here. For the next piece. Yes. So, okay, coming up next. Yeah, we need to do, as we do every January, chair and vice chair elections. I mentioned kind of before a couple of times, I need to step down just with some other pressing time commitments I have going on. And I'll give you a heads up. I may also need to roll off the board. I'm going to be kind of really looking at that over the next few weeks, kind of figure that out the next month or so. Just number of work commitments and things popping up that are pulling me away a little bit more than I'd love them to, but I'll be in touch about that. But for tonight, would love to see if there's some interest in folks taking over the chair position. It's a wonderful position. You get to lead these great meetings with these great people. Look at all these awesome ideas we've generated tonight and at our last meeting. What else can I say? You get a nice Christmas card from the city.
Perks.
Perks.
Which is more than the board does, do. Well, I would just like to say, I hope if there's anybody sitting there who really would like to do it, speak up, because I don't think don't be shy, because I certainly don't. So I hope somebody does. And I was asking Joanna, said she didn't answer my email of, well, do we know if anybody wants to do it?
I'm sorry, Trudy, that was that. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. I thought maybe it was like maybe there was no answer to that.
Not on purpose to not respond back to you, sorry.
Lynn's our vice president, right?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Is Lynn our vice president? Well,
Linda is our current vice chair.
that's
Yes, she
a
is.
usual progression route.
I took it because no one else would, not for the intent of sliding into the chair position. So no, I am not able to do that. Sorry.
Joanna, quick question here before we go any further. In looking at the Conservancy Board's Google Drive and documents, is there somewhere where it's written what the responsibilities of the chair and vice chair are? I don't know if that would be helpful for any members of the board to be able to understand. I mean, I think, at least I feel like I understand a little bit, Jen, about what you do for the board. But, from having it written down, kind of formalized, I didn't know if that exists somewhere or not.
Yeah, so I'll say the very basic roles, I think, are outlined in our bylaws. That's, again, the pretty basic, like what's the board chair's role and, calling meetings and making decisions and those kinds of things when certain things come up.
Hi there. Can I give you a call back?
I'm sorry.
I've got the Conservancy Board.
Are they calling to ask him to be president?
Maybe somebody on the line has
Okay.
an interest
Thank you.
in joining us. You never know, Tom. That could be a call you want to answer. So
Yeah, you nominate him while he's on the phone.
That's right. That's right. The city did several years ago, and Racine and Jackie, please jump in here if you remember. This could have been 3-4 year ago. I feel like I don't know. It's like a COVID brain. The past 2 years, I've lost track of. So it was a little while ago. Hillary, I think, distributed a document that suggested the different roles of the staff liaisons, like Racine's position, Jackie, versus the board chair.
Yeah,
Quite
I would
lengthy,
have
is
to
my
go back to
memory.
I would have to go back to Hillary and I just don't remember.
Yeah, so the board chair is basically lead the meetings. They put together an agenda, usually with some help from staff if there's certain issues we know that perhaps should be discussed. And any coordination, I mean, the meetings are set, the date and time. If we ever need to change them, they coordinate with Hillary on that. And from time to time has to organize an in-between meeting or take a vote or distribute information, but I think it's pretty regular, what the duties are, and can make assignments as needed. I don't think there's been often times where Joanna had to consult with either Racine or I off in between meetings, but sometimes, I mean, the busiest we got was over that whole Kingsport easement thing. And then on top of that, we had the second Kingsport easement issue.
It was a fun time.
Yeah, that was probably the most busy we were outside of regular meetings.
Yeah, and so in those cases also, the chair works really closely with Ashley as well. So our kind of attorney representative there for the city, and she's incredibly helpful.
I guess the chair makes sure that the report is completed every year. Did you guys complete your report yet? Annual report.
It's so embarrassing to be sitting here and not having done my task.
And you know, that's not always the chair's responsibility. Like somebody can be assigned to do initial draft, and then the committee looks at it, and then the chair makes sure it's submitted. You know, but the chair doesn't do all the work. Committee members take on assignments.
I share my perspective, having watched Karen and Joanna be chairs. It does, I think it's good for it to be someone whose field of work this is. I mean, I feel like I can make little contributions and see things, but the kind of things that Joanna and Karen go forth and talk to people about and help to execute on our behalf feel to me like they best come from people whose this is their sort of line of work. I looking at the, you know, more than just someone like me who got appointed out of a general policy interest, but no real specialty in the requirements and the organizations and the things that govern our issues. There's a compliment embedded in that, Karen and Joanna. I mean, it's some amount of oomph about the substance of land use preservation procedures or knowledge. I don't think it has to be super deep, but it certainly has benefited us to have someone who brought a knowledge of the field to the job as well.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that, Trudy. Thank you, but I mean, I definitely think it helps to have that knowledge on the board, but really, I think anyone who has organizational skills and can lead a meeting could be the chair. Like that's really the key thing, is running the meetings. So I don't want anybody to feel scared off by you have to be an expert in.
I think we have several people who have that, she says, looking at you all. But so I know I wasn't trying to scare anybody off at all, just that I just think it in addition to the routine matters of being a chair, we certainly benefited by people who were working almost in that profession, if sort of, but anyway,
No, appreciate both perspectives, and thank you for the compliment there, Trudy, as well.
No, we have to stick, wait for it, it's coming.
Yeah,
So-
those are good questions, Jack. Well, go ahead.
So, Ms. Chair, how does this process work? I mean, do we nominate someone as a board? I mean, clearly it has to be one of, I feel like this is like a game of Clue. We're trying to figure out who's gonna
It's a
pick
very
up
fun one, isn't it?
the torch here. Yeah, yeah. So because I haven't been a part of this, haven't had the pleasure to participate in one of these elections before. I'm just not sure what, I think we would all like to advance, but I'm not sure how exactly what the next step is.
So yeah, and everybody correct me if I'm wrong, but yes. Oh, go ahead, Karen, if you want to do it.
Well, I was just gonna say, we would nominate somebody for chair and then vote on that if that person is willing to do it, and then nominate somebody for vice chair and vote on it. So I don't know, maybe the easiest thing would be for people who are absolutely not willing to do it to say, and then that would, since then we would know who's,
Who's left?
but yeah.
I would
Tom,
like
you
to
haven't been
see
chair
Jack
before,
if
have
he's-
you?
I've been vice chair in the past, and even with that, I mean, Karen brings up, good points, but I think, each of us has has certain disqualifiers for, as I shared a little bit with Michael, but, for me, trying to not fail at retirement, but that's also going to entail for me a couple of, fairly major surgeries now that I am finally sitting around theoretically with nothing better to do. But unfortunately, that would also preclude, taking an active role in things. So, depending on what's going on, and I'm sure all of us run into, certain things along that line. As he said, everybody's here to help, and we would be, happy to help whoever is picked as chair. And there's going to be enough knowledge around in order to, I believe, to help the chair. But it would be just being available in order to allow that person to go, to present, when that's appropriate. Joanne, I think you probably, you could share that as far as how frequently, you physically meet with certain people, but that goes along also, Trudy, with what you were saying about, having a working knowledge of something, at least being able to speak the same language to either the other boards or trusts, and able to work through with that. So, but I think, for the most part, it's not an awful lot of heavy lifting, but it is a matter of, being available and being flexible, and also knowing whether or not somebody has any clue as far as what they're talking about, so that you could bring them on back to, a little bit more of the reality of what it is that everyone's looking for.
It sounded to me like a man who was almost volunteering. Was that what I was hearing?
Not for me, not unless you've got this great burning desire for a lot of casting and other medical contrivances for the next year and a half. So, but other than that,
Ready to hear that? Yeah.
great idea.
Well, I'll play Karen's, I absolutely positively cannot do anything more. I don't know if I'm failing or succeeding at retirement, but I couldn't possibly, and I honestly don't feel I have the depth of knowledge that my predecessors did. Yeah.
Are we allowed to propose someone? Can I suggest that I nominate Jack if he's interested?
Is Jack interested?
A little nervous, following in the footsteps of people like Joanna and Karen, but I mean, really, I actually pulled up the bylaws, and it says what the chair is supposed to do. So, I mean, reading through that and having participated now for maybe 6 or 8 months with this board, I think that it's something that I could do. And as long as I have your support, and maybe Linda can be kind of my my vice chair, I would nominate back Linda.
Nicely done.
I'm willing to continue as vice chair. Yep.
And remember, Jack, it's only a 1-year commitment.
That makes it a little more digestible, I think is the right way to put it.
All right, so we have a nomination. I'll second, because Linda already nominated Jack, so I'll second. And then we can move to a vote.
Yeah. So this will be for Jack. I think we have to do them separately, if I recall correctly. So this will be for Jack as chair. All those in favor say aye, or raise your hand, or
Aye.
Aye.
Agreed. Trust Karen's recruiting.
Yeah, and then so Linda has been nominated by Jack for vice chair position.
Correct.
So then all those in favor of
We
Linda
need a
Frost?
second. Who's seconding it?
Oh, yes.
I'll second that.
That was Patrick.
Yep.
There we go. Thank you, Karen. See, Jack, he can just keep messing up and people catch it. It's all right. Do it all the time. I should really be better at that. Yeah. All right. All those in favor of Linda as vice chair, say aye.
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 All right. Well, congratulations, Jack and Linda, the dream team
Thank
for
you, team.
2023.
Awesome.
I think
Yeah.
And thank you,
you both for
Joanna,
doing
for
it.
your many years of service. You have been an outstanding chair.
Thank
You
you.
have been.
That's a great group.
Thank you, Joanna.
No,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Joanna.
guys.
Seriously, thank you very much. Joanna, I have a question if now's the right
Mhm.
time. When you said that not only are you transitioning out of the chair position, but potentially transitioning off of the board entirely, do you have a timeline for that? Because I feel like maybe it would be beneficial for us to connect, to maybe get a bit of the institutional knowledge, and just kind
Absolutely.
of get up to speed on chair, the current events.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'll make that kind of call in the next kind of 3-4 weeks here.
Okay.
I'm just looking at some new time commitments coming in work wise, but Jack, I'd be happy to meet with you in that time frame. And I will say, really, at any point, please always feel free to reach out to me, email or give me a phone call. I never mind having that conversation.
Great.
I
Thank
can't
you.
say how,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely, how helpful it's been, Karen, to have you on the board, and Tom, and even Trudy. I know we came about the same time, but to have that sort of institutional knowledge has been incredibly helpful. So yeah, they paid it forward for me, so I'll do the same. Yeah, happy to do that.
Wonderful. That puts me a bit at ease. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this the full capacity for what this board is supposed to do? I know it's a full
7.
attendance, but is this what the board numbers are supposed to be? I feel like this board ought to be 1 or 2, especially if we have any meetings.
There are 7 on the board.
7. Mhm.
7.
Okay.
Well, since we're having
Joanna-
this conversation, I'll just make it known that I intend to step down when my term is over, because at that point I will have been on this board almost 2 decades. So I think that's time enough. Time for someone else to.
You think?
But I have like a year or 2 left, I think, in my term. But
I'm trying to
when
remember
that
what
term's over,
years.
that's it.
Not that anyone's counting, Karen, but it's June the 30th, 2024.
You've got a whole other year. Yeah. That's good.
He was born to lead this commission. Look at it.
Exactly. Look at that.
I know, I was like, just the fact that he was pulling up the bylaws earlier was a sign.
I think so too.
Yeah. All right.
So
That'd be
the
great.
annual report is due to Hillary on the 16th. Yeah, I had to bring it up.
There you go. That
I
was our.
know, and I just
know.
apologize, and Lynn did her part, which was get me and it shouldn't take me long to poke it into a draft report, and I will promise we'll have something we can just review it by email, a draft, can we, or whatever Jack wants to do, but something we could hopefully submit by the end of January. It's only the middle of January, right? Yeah, well, it's not quite the middle, but I am sorry. It just slipped through. What can I say?
So Trudy, I'm looking at last year's annual report. Do we have anything like in a draft form that we can kind of work with, or?
Well, Jack, I did this a couple years, and what we did, well, you go ahead, Lynn, and
I was gonna say, I went through the last year's meeting minutes, and I think I put together bullet points and sent them to Trudy. So we could, Trudy, you're going to be away and stuff, and try to get this in on time when it's due. We could just look at last year's and kind of how it was formatted and everything, and try to just put some meat on the bone and try to get a draft.
well, if you want to, it is. You take last year's and you basically edit in this year's things. That's
I can do that.
Thank you.
I
I'm
can do that.
sorry. You have both documents, I know, because you sent them both to me.
Yes, Racine, I'll start to work on that tomorrow. I have some time tomorrow, so I'll circulate a draft to some folks.
I apologize.
No problem.
I don't like
Listen,
to.
it's not like I got it to you like 2 months ago. So I didn't. I mean, it's only been a few weeks, so, and the holidays.
There you go, Jack. See, look, you already got things shaped up. Take
Yeah,
out the
right.
dead wood and get it moved to somebody who will produce it for you. Go, well, you go.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like we've got kind of a framework. I mean, we have this, I think we can use last year's report as sort of a template. And then
Yeah.
based on what Linda said, we've got bullet points. And I mean, I think even going into, I don't know if Linda, if you've gone to like the meeting minutes and
I have, yeah.
pulled things out of there. So to me, it doesn't sound like it's a big lift, but obviously
It's not. It's
someone
not.
has to spend time doing it. And that's really appreciated. So
yeah.
Thank you, Linda and Trudy.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you all for that. Yeah. And anything else from you, Racine, on that end?
I wanted to
Feel good.
update you on Hawkins Cove.
Okay. Yeah.
There's not a whole lot to update you on it, but just to let you know where it is. The RFP still has not been put out to bid yet. What has happened is they have taken the RFP and incorporated Eric Lashinsky's comments into it, and it has been sent over to James in procurement to take a look at, and it should be going out. The RFP should be going out soon. Mike Rosberg said he'll let me know when it goes out.
And I'll, just in case folks are not familiar with kind of the process of how these things work. So the city received a grant, so a chunk of change to get a design done for Hawkins Cove, I believe, and a little bit of construction started of living shoreline maybe. And they are going to contract that work out to a consultant, a design team, whoever. And in order to do that, they have to let what's called an RFP, a request for proposals. They have to put that out there publicly for anyone, any company that wants to bid on the opportunity to get that contract to do that work. So when she says we're going to let an RFP, they're at the point where they will begin to put that on the streets and companies can submit proposals to take on that work.
Do we
Christine,
know-
is that
you may not do that,
information
but-
as of what day?
That's as of today.
Okay, I thought it was out.
And how long is it supposed to be open, Racy?
I no idea.
30 days.
Is it 30 days?
They're doing 30 days.
Yeah, it's normally around a month, at least for that kind of a response. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give a target at least to
It's been, and I gotta tell you, Tom, it's been tough getting bids even on our larger projects, and they're all coming in way over what we're offering.
I think, yeah, their
I know we've seen that
prices are up.
at the county too. It's just,
Mhm.
inflation, supply chains,
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stuff.
We're seeing the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
okay.
challenging. And so this plays into this board, one of the goals that we had for this year, which Racine also, thanks for the nice bullet points in your minutes. So this will be really helpful, hopefully, Linda, for you, and kind of just highlighting what are some of our goals for 2023. But one of those was to pursue kind of new easements and potential, and really that one on Hawkins Cove. And so I think, and this is, I know we talked about this last time, but the point at which we would want to re-engage NET in helping us to create an easement on Hawkins Cove would be when you feel pretty confident, what improvements you want to make to Hawkins Cove, that you would want to be allowed in an easement. It sounds like if you're at the point where you're gonna let a bid for that, we're fairly close, I guess. And maybe that's a question I'm sort of posing back to Jackie and Racine.
Yeah, I mean, this is a high priority of the mayor's, so we've been pushing and pushing to get this one out. And once it gets out, that's when the process should start to move. We'll make a selection,
Yeah.
within by late spring, and we'll get it moving. The design shouldn't take too long. And I would like to see construction started by the end of the summer, get through permitting. So I know they're going to try to fast track it.
So just to clarify, I mean, I heard someone mention shoreline. What is this RFP for?
It's for design and construction of a living shoreline and other improvements at Hawkins Cove. There have been some work, and Spa Creek Conservancy did a step hill conveyance system in the stream leading down to Hawkins Cove that feeds Hawkins Cove. And I think it's done some of the work to trap sediment. I mean, there's a lot of sediment in Hawkins Cove. It probably slowed down a lot of it, at least from that side. But there's stormwater coming down the road. There's an incline that goes down to the cove. It's semi-paved. There's a lot of gravel. And so we need to tie that step pool conveyance system into some of the swales that Spot Creek Conservancy put in, and then into the living shoreline. When we did community outreach as part of this grant, the community wants to leave it in a pretty much a natural state, but get rid of the invasives that are there. And perhaps the only amenities, put in some benches and some picnic tables for passive enjoyment, and then to also improve the trails that are on the property that lead over to across Primrose and tie into Truxton Park. The idea is eventually to, and also there's a dock there that needs some repair, if not replacement in part or total. And then we're also trying to work with DNR through the Waterway Improvement Fund to get dredging so that it actually could, at least the channel, so it could be a navigable waterway. We went to put kayaks and paddle boards, a rack there, but you can't even do that without some dredging unless the living shoreline extends out far enough into the waterway that would, push it out a little further to deeper water. I still think that all the sediment there is going to be a problem.
There.
Okay, so to clarify, this is sort of what I was looking for specifically, is you actually have pretty much decided on the list of improvements.
Yeah.
Okay, well then
because we did 2 sets of community engagement as pre-application and then as part of the grant. And that part of it was for community outreach, and consistently that was the message that was received. Some passive enjoyment, trail improvements, living shoreline, be able to use it for kayaking, paddle boards. The mayor would actually like to get a water taxi back there eventually for free taxi service. We have a bunch of other grants. There's a NIFWIF grant, about $500,000 that the city received just recently for trail improvements in Truxton and other improvements. And we're going to tie that into the Hawkins Cove project. And then up the hill where the HACA headquarters is located, that's the Harbor House and Eastport Terrace public housing projects. Those are all part of a HUD community grant. So that whole, there'll be several things going on that are all going to tie into Hawkins Cove, bringing disadvantaged people to the water, providing them water access, and just regular improvements, tie it into the park. And then, as Joanne is talking about, putting a conservation easement, not only on Hawkins Cove, but on Truxton Park as well, and making Hawkins Cove part of our park system, if not just part of Truxton Park. It'll probably become its own park.
And was there was going to be a survey to define what was owned by the city?
Yes,
and what was
yes, that's part of this whole.
Has that happened or no?
No, that's part of the project to roll everything together.
Okay, so they'll do that.
Yeah, it's in the RFP. It's included in the RFP.
Okay.
Go ahead,
From my
Linda.
perspective, it's time to engage MET on looking at the conservation easement is when we sort of have the list of potential improvements, which it sounds like you all do, when we know the property area to be put under conservation easement, like what the city has, what we control. And then if you said something about NIFWIF and tying it all together. And so if you're actually conceptually gonna maybe do something with this piece of property that is tied into NIFWIF funds, they always have their finger in requirements. So that's it.
Yeah, I think once we probably liked also to have the design concept done as well. That's something to show MET is, the actual design concept for the property that would list all the improvements. I keep having to turn off my camera. I'm having sneezing fits.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Racine, like as soon as we find out, like once they do get, they accept a proposal and they get underway and they're sort of developing a conceptual design, that would be kind of good to know.
Okay.
And it sounds like it's going to be.
Yeah, Mike Rosberg said he'll keep me in the loop. So
Right.
As soon as I know, I'll let you know.
Well, that sounds good. And if it's It should be fine. I was gonna say, would you mind sharing the RFP when it's done with our board, so we can start to get an idea of sort of what improvements and design elements you have in there and kind of get
Once the
thinking
final
about that.
selection is made, Joanne?
Hmm?
After the selection is made, is that what you're,
I was gonna say, as it's let out, just to start seeing, so
Yeah.
before the selection is made, just so we can see what criteria the city are putting in there, what improvements they're asking for, what design elements.
yeah,
But
the only,
we don't have to, I just.
well, no.
Well, I mean,
It'd be good to see. I think the one thing that I'm not concerned about, but I mean, that is going to be a challenge is it sounds like it's pretty much of an open, hi, I want one of this and I want some of that, and maybe we can do this, and then we'll bring some of that in, and then we'll go through all these different things. A lot of it ends up being additive, and a lot of it's not going to be able to be covered unless this RFP strictly is nothing more than design. If it is nothing more than design, then the separate project goes back in as far as coming up with the dollars and cents that they project, will happen. What can be done locally, what can be done, they have to contract out who's best to be able to do that. And if that's the case, again, I agree, it would be helpful if we were able to take a look at it. Then we can help the various portions of the city, facilitate that, or we can build our own forward running project in order to dovetail with what's going to be happening or what's going to be coming out of that. But if it is as open-ended as it sounds, then I think if we just have the RFP without knowing, okay, fine, gee, this, we have $500,000 to do this, it's going to take $3 million in order to be able to accomplish all of what we're going to do. And we need to get some sort of an idea saying, okay, fine, what are we going to start with? What can we do individually? What can we do that's not going to be undone by subsequent information, so that we don't fall into the, into the habit of, assisting in the wrong place, I guess is what I'm saying. We go and build a bridge, and then the people turn around and saying, well, in order to be able to do the next step of what we need to do, we've got to take that bridge out. It sounds more complex than I hope it actually is. Hopefully it is. They're going to get exactly what they need to operate, but it does sound extremely complex and open-ended. Just again, without seeing it 2 cents worth. But as long as we've got a good handle on the direction the city wants to go, and then we can help facilitate that. But I just want to, seeing it before decisions are made may get to be a little bit iffy, I guess is what I'm saying. We may be going off on one tangent and the others may not be, moving in that.
Although give us the perspective of what's, like kind of would answer your question about like what's defined or not defined, so that we are prepared, that we don't ask for things that weren't part of it.
You're right, Karen. I mean, it would just be, once it all starts to come together, and we've got somebody who says, okay, fine, we're going to do this, and this in that order, or groupings along that line, then terrific. But I mean, if we don't have that level of clarity, we may end up just spinning our wheels, and I don't think we want to quite jump in and do that. But again, there'll be something for a new president. Congratulations, sir. New chair. To be able to handle as far as bringing that forward. It's just, again, right information, make the decision only once, and make sure that there's enough money in order to do what we would really like to do, or that there are other people who could step in order to facilitate what we would really like to do. Contracts are a pain in the butt. They're extremely complex. And it's normally the little things that just kind of jump up and bite you, especially when it gets to execution. That's the only reason I was chiming in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good, Tom, because Article 4 contracts of our bylaws says the board may not authorize ... to enter into any contract. So we will stay far away from.
Absolutely.
Nicely done.
Absolutely, sir. It's everybody has great great and wonderful desire, ideas, and a lot of energy. And that's super until you run into that first, huge brick wall, and you kind of get a little gun shy. So yeah, as long as we get some sort of an idea, and not again bring out the old other hackneyed saying, put the cart before the horse. Just get the people working in the right direction. Okay, thank you. Enough of me.
No, that's all right. So I think, if you're able to, Reese, you want to share that just as sort of an FYI for the board, just to get an idea of sort of what you guys are thinking about for the property. And then it sounds like, at least at this point, thank you, ma'am. The interest is really, once you've got that design completed, that would probably be at that point the time to maybe re-engage with MET.
And
to
the
make sure.
survey.
And the survey completed, which is part of the design contract. Okay, so that's awesome. That's great. That's in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that sounds like that's exciting. Congratulations, Racine and Jackie. I know it's been a long time coming.
Hello,
Takes a
everybody.
while. Yeah. Let's see here. Do we have other updates? Pull my agenda on county easement monitoring. So Jack, you've got yours, it sounds like. I think I've got mine.
Yeah, I put them in the Google Drive, the two that I
Perfect.
was responsible for. And then I just double checked. We had a sign up spreadsheet, if the
Mhm.
board recalls. And I just verified that those were the two that I was assigned to.
That's
So they're in our Google Drive under 2022 easement monitoring
Awesome.
for me personally.
Yeah, so I know Patrick has done his, and Linda, I think I've got mine to add into the folder. So for other folks, if you haven't had a chance to do your easements yet, please jump in there and do that as soon as you can. And as Jack mentioned, that's all in sort of that Google Drive there, the spreadsheet. We can send that around again, though, if you're not sure what you signed up for, can easily do that.
Yeah, and I'll volunteer if anybody needs a hand with either accessing the Google Drive or using Google Drive, or going out to do an easement inspection. I would be happy to help try to accommodate with my schedule.
That's really awesome.
That'd be good. Thanks, Jack.
All right, well, we are a few minutes past 7 o'clock. Does anybody have any announcements or kind of questions, burning thoughts or ideas?
Hmm.
Think on it.
I'm at a loss for words.
Because you're so excited about the new opportunity in front of you.
Yes, thank you for
Right?
the vote of confidence.
Yes.
And I will be the best chair that I can be with all of your support. So thank you. I appreciate it.
You'll be great. Yeah.
Joanne, again, you've been great. Yeah, we're gonna,
Thank you.
I hope you don't have to leave the board. Not
Thank you. I
yet.
appreciate that. Not yet. I don't know if I can do 20 years like Carrot. She's a real
No,
trooper.
I don't care.
I guess it's only 16 if this.
Oh, well, in that
Yeah.
case, you're getting another term.
No.
I'm kidding.
Look at her. She's already moved to the Wild West somewhere where we can't
The
even.
prairie.
find her, you know?
I'm going to take the Nancy Pelosi approach and bow out. Leave it to new people.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Well, thank you all. This has been really great. I've enjoyed working with you guys and getting to know each of you for sure on an individual level as well. But it's a great mission and that the board has. I thought it was great that the director of the place came and talked to us tonight and just seemed to be really supportive of the direction we've been wanting to go for, I don't know, a couple of years now at least, right? So I think the pieces are really kind of falling into place here. Very close of being ready to move forward on easement on Hawkins Cove. I mean, that's probably within the next year, which is, I think that would be just an amazing accomplishment to get across the finish line. So yeah, things are coming into place. Jack, I think you'll be fantastic. Patrick, it's wonderful to have you on board as well. I think your expertise is excellent. I know you don't, you're very thoughtful and quiet, but I think you have a fantastic expertise as well that you bring to the group. And Trudy, you do too. So you can't keep saying you don't have the right, the right background. I think you and Tom and everybody does. It's a pretty fantastic group of people. So thank you guys. And thank you especially to Racine. I know Jackie jumped off, and I'll just say it to Ashley as well, but we'll send her a note. You guys have been really great and super helpful. Yeah, keeping things moving and answering questions, which I always have. So thank you.
Joanne, are we to a point where you want a recommendation to adjourn or
Yes, sir.
okay, I so make that first recommendation.
There you go.
I
We
second.
have it. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, yay. Nice work,
Adios.
everybody. Yeah.